They say the jungle never sleeps, but on one particular night, it held its breath. A small village, nestled deep in the heart of the dense ancient forest, had always lived in uneasy harmony with the wild around it. The elders often spoke of spirits, watchers in the trees, guardians of the unknown. Most of the villagers dismissed these tales as nothing more than folklore, but when the strange events began, no one could ignore the possibility that something beyond their understanding was at play. It started with whispers. Rumors spread of a shadow, a figure that moved swiftly between the trees, too large and too strange to be any known animal. Some said it was a beast, something out of a nightmare. Others called it a ghost, a spectral presence that haunted the village. But as time went on, the name that stuck was the gorilla phantom. It was a creature unlike anything anyone had seen before, towering and powerful, yet eerily silent. Those who claimed to have seen it said it moved like mist, flowing between the trees without making a sound. Its presence was felt in the air, an unsettling stillness that hung over the village, and always it left behind traces. Huge, unnatural footprints in the soft mud, far too large for any known animal to leave behind. Some villagers even spoke of glowing eyes that watched them from the darkness of the forest at night. Others heard deep, rumbling growls in the distance, but when they ventured outside to investigate, there was nothing, just the jungle, quiet as if it had been holding its breath. Then came the night that changed everything. A storm rolled in, fierce and unrelenting, with the rain pouring down in torrents, as if the heavens themselves were in turmoil. The wind howled, and thunder cracked the sky open with an ear-splitting roar. Amidst the chaos, something else stirred. The shadow, the gorilla phantom, reappeared. It was like nothing anyone had seen before. The animals went wild, thrashing in their pens, barking and growling in a frenzy. The dogs refused to go anywhere near the edge of the forest, cowering in fear. And then, in the midst of the storm, a child disappeared, vanished without a trace. Hours passed before he reappeared, barefoot and drenched, his clothes clinging to his small frame. He looked terrified, his eyes wide with a fear no one could understand. When he was asked what had happened, he said something no one could have prepared for. He spoke of the creature, the gorilla phantom. He was tall, the child said, his voice trembling, like a man, but furry. He had big eyes. He told me not to be scared. From that moment, the village was never the same. Fear swept through the community like a wildfire. No one walked alone after dark. The fires were kept burning through the night, the light flickering in the distance, a symbol of their attempt to keep the darkness at bay. The once peaceful village was now a place of constant unease, and still, no one could say for sure what it was. No one knew what they had seen, or if it had even been real. All they had were stories, whispers, and the lingering feeling that something had been watching them from the depths of the jungle. The story of the gorilla phantom is one that has been passed down through generations. It began as a local legend, something whispered around campfires and shared by the elders who had lived in the village long before the mysterious events started. But what's strange is that the legend wasn't like others. It didn't have the comforting air of a traditional folk tale. No, this was different. This was something real, something that seemed to echo from the depths of the jungle, where the thick trees held secrets and the winds carried stories of things unseen. It all started with the first sightings. In the early days, there were only rumors. The villagers would talk about strange shadows moving through the trees at night, too large to be a normal animal. Some claimed they saw a figure, tall and broad, moving in the darkness, always just out of reach of the light. But there was never any proof, no concrete evidence. That's the thing about legends. They live on the edges of reality, just enough to make you question what's real. The first true encounter came from an old hunter named Yoro. He was known for his skill and bravery in the jungle, a man who had lived among the trees for decades. One evening, while tracking a wild boar, he swore he saw something moving ahead of him. At first, he thought it was just another animal, maybe a large ape or a bear. But as he got closer, he saw it clearly, a massive, hulking figure, with long, dark fur that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Yoro said the creature didn't move like any animal he'd ever seen. It walked on two legs, but its arms hung low, almost dragging on the ground. Its eyes, those glowing eyes, locked onto his, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure disappeared into the trees. When Yoro returned to the village and told his story, most of the villagers thought he was just tired from the long hunt, or maybe seeing things in the dark. But Yoro's reputation as a seasoned hunter held weight, and his eyes, wide with fear, left an impression. Something had been out there, something that didn't belong. As the weeks passed, other strange occurrences followed. One morning, a farmer found his crops trampled, the ground torn up like something heavy had walked through it. But there were no animal tracks, just those same, strange, enormous prints. Another villager found her food supplies mysteriously eaten, but no signs of a break-in. There were no wild animals in the area that could have done such a thing. And each time, the villagers would hear stories from someone else. Whispers of a creature moving silently through the jungle, its presence only felt in the air, as if it was always watching. The legend of the gorilla phantom began to take root, not just in the whispers of the villagers, but in their minds. Was it a creature of flesh and blood? Or was it something more, something spiritual perhaps, that had crossed over from another realm? Some elders spoke of ancient guardians, protectors of the jungle, beings that had once roamed freely but had now faded into myth. But there was one thing they all agreed on. Whatever it was not something to be trifled with. And as the stories grew, so did the mystery. Each encounter seemed to add another layer, another piece to the puzzle. The truth about the gorilla phantom, what it was, where it came from, and why it seemed to haunt this particular village, remained as elusive as the shadow itself. The night that changed everything began like any other stormy evening in the jungle. The sky darkened, the clouds rolled in thick and fast, and the first crack of thunder shattered the stillness. The rain started to pour, relentless and heavy, as if the heavens themselves were preparing for something monumental. Villagers went inside, pulling their doors shut and huddling around fires, waiting for the storm to pass. But that night, the storm didn't just bring rain, it brought something far darker. As the winds howled through the trees and the jungle erupted in chaotic noise, something unusual happened. The dogs, who had always been calm during storms, began to bark wildly, their howls rising in panic. The livestock became restless, thrashing in their pens, their eyes wide with fear. No one understood what had set them off, but what followed would make it clear that this was no ordinary storm. A child, only 10 years old, disappeared. It wasn't unusual for children to wander off during a storm, as the village was small, and everyone knew each other. But this child, little Malu, didn't return when the storm finally passed. Hours passed, and the villagers began to worry. They called out for him, searched the fields, and scoured the jungle's edge, but Malu was nowhere to be found. Then, just as hope seemed to dwindle, Malu reappeared. He stumbled out of the trees, drenched to the bone, his clothes clinging to his thin frame. His eyes were wide, unblinking, as if frozen in terror, but what he said next would chill the blood of anyone who heard it. Malu told them he had been with the creature. It was tall, like a man, but furry. It had big eyes, he said, his voice shaking. He told me not to be scared. He told me I was safe. The villagers stared in disbelief, unable to process his words. Malu had never shown signs of fear before, yet now he was trembling like a leaf in the wind. His story didn't make sense, but the fear in his eyes was undeniable. The child's story spread quickly through the village, and soon it became clear that something beyond their understanding had taken place. The elders gathered, speaking in hushed tones, trying to make sense of what had happened. But the stories all seemed to align. Something was watching from the trees, something that had been there all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. That night, the village was never the same. The fear that had once been just a whisper among the villagers grew into something palpable. People locked their doors, kept their fires burning long into the night, and spoke only in soft tones when discussing the phantom. The shadow, it seemed, was no longer just a myth. It was real, and it had left its mark on the village, on Malu, and on every soul who had heard the story. What happened that night? Was it a wild animal? Or was it something more? The questions grew and the mystery deepened. For every answer, new doubts were born, and the village was left with more questions than ever. The gorilla phantom had made its presence known, but what did it want? And why had it chosen that night to reveal itself? The question on everyone's mind was simple. Was there any proof of the gorilla phantom, or was it all just a series of strange coincidences? To answer that, we have to look at the evidence, or the lack of it, that surfaced in the weeks following Malu's disappearance. What's interesting is that, despite numerous reports and stories, no one could ever provide a clear, undeniable piece of proof that something out of the ordinary had occurred. One of the first pieces of evidence came from a series of blurry photographs. A local man, eager to find answers, ventured into the forest with his camera, hoping to catch a glimpse of the elusive creature. What he returned with were pictures, grainy, distorted images of something large and shadowy, partially obscured by trees and darkness. In one of the photos, you can make out what looks like a large, hulking figure standing in the distance, its shape unnaturally broad. The photo was so unclear, though, that it was hard to tell whether it was a trick of the light or the creature itself. Experts who examined the photos couldn't come to a definitive conclusion. Some believed it was simply a case of poor lighting, shadows, or even the camera's low resolution. Others swore they could see the unmistakable outline of something, or someone. Then came the footprints. Several villagers, after hearing of the sightings, decided to search the area where Malu had wandered that fateful night. What they found was both baffling and terrifying. Massive footprints, much larger than any animal in the region, deeply imprinted in the soft earth. Some of the prints had strange, elongated toes, and others appeared to be more human in shape than animal. But there was something else. They were scattered all over the forest floor, as though the creature had moved with purpose, yet there was no sign of it leaving the area or hiding. It was as if the footprints simply appeared, leaving everyone more confused than ever. But here's where the mystery deepens. When a team of wildlife experts came in to investigate, they couldn't find any trace of a known animal that could account for such large prints. There were no large primates in the area, no gorillas, no orangutans, not even large apes native to the region. The experts were stumped. They suggested it could be the work of an escaped exotic animal, but that theory didn't sit well with the villagers. How could something so large go unnoticed for so long, hiding in the thick jungle, evading every search? As the weeks went by, some began to wonder if there was more to this than just a rogue animal. A paranormal team even visited the village, armed with the latest ghost hunting equipment. They set up cameras, motion detectors, and infrared sensors in an effort to capture something definitive. The team spent days in the jungle, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Their equipment malfunctioned multiple times, with cameras going dark and batteries draining faster than they should have. Some of the team members even reported feeling watched, an overwhelming sensation that something was there just beyond their sight. But they never saw anything. Still, the locals couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been haunting their village wasn't something easily explained. There were too many strange occurrences, too many unexplained events. Even if there was no clear proof, the presence of the gorilla phantom loomed large in their minds, its shadow cast over every whispered conversation. So, what are we left with? A collection of blurry photos, strange footprints, and testimonies from terrified villagers. But none of it is definitive. None of it can answer the question, what was the gorilla phantom, and why had it come? As much as the evidence points to something unnatural, it still remains shrouded in mystery. And as long as it does, the legend will continue to haunt the village, leaving behind only more questions than answers. The search for the truth behind the gorilla phantom wasn't just a matter of looking for physical evidence. It became a quest that stretched beyond the boundaries of the village, into the very heart of the jungle and the depths of the unknown. But despite all the efforts, the truth remained frustratingly out of reach. After the first few reports of sightings, a group of experienced hunters and trackers volunteered to search the dense jungle for any signs of the creature. Armed with weapons, traps, and all the knowledge they had gained over years of living with the wild, they ventured deep into the forest. They spent days scouring the area where Malu had wandered, searching for anything that could lead them to an answer. They followed the strange footprints, hoping they would eventually lead them to the creature itself. But every time they thought they were getting closer, the tracks would mysteriously stop. Sometimes they would find broken branches, as though something large had passed through. Other times, there were no signs at all. It was as though the creature was toying with them, staying one step ahead. And after days of searching, they returned empty-handed, their hopes dashed. Then came the wildlife experts, who were brought in to analyze the situation. They set out with their own equipment, cameras, trackers, and sensors, to gather more data. They walked the same trails, took the same measurements, but they found nothing. The prints they had seen were so large and so strange that they couldn't be explained by any known animal in the area. There were no gorillas, no other large primates, and no species that could account for the size and shape of the prints. They even looked at the possibility of it being a hoax, but the prints were too large, too deep, and too consistent to dismiss as anything other than genuine. Still, no animal was found. No fresh sightings. No trace of the creature. It was as if it had simply vanished into thin air. Some even began to consider a more unusual theory. Could the gorilla phantom be something paranormal? A group of paranormal investigators arrived, equipped with high-tech gadgets designed to detect ghostly entities and supernatural phenomena. They set up cameras around the village, placed motion detectors in the jungle, and waited for any sign that would confirm the presence of the creature. But just as with the wildlife experts, their attempts yielded little more than frustration. Their cameras would occasionally flicker, their equipment would malfunction, and they reported strange feelings of being watched. But they never saw anything. The jungle was silent, save for the occasional sound of distant thunder or rustling leaves. Yet, despite all their tools and technology, they never managed to capture a single clear image or sign that the creature was real. The most unsettling part of the entire search was the growing sense that something was hiding just beyond their sight. The jungle seemed to shift in strange ways, as if it knew they were coming. People would hear strange sounds, soft footsteps behind them, whispers on the wind, but when they turned to look, nothing was there. The sensation of being followed, watched, was palpable, and for some, it became too much to bear. The search parties had to abandon their efforts, their nerves frayed, their minds questioning what they had really been looking for. Despite all the searches, the missing pieces of the puzzle never came together. No one had an answer. No one had any conclusive proof. And yet the feeling that something was out there remained. The jungle, with its secrets and shadows, refused to give up its story. For all the experts, all the equipment, and all the courage of the villagers, the truth was just beyond reach. Some began to question whether the gorilla phantom was something they could ever truly understand. Perhaps it was a creature that existed in a space between the known and the unknown, always on the edge of perception, slipping through the cracks of reality. Was it an undiscovered species, a rogue animal, or something far more mysterious? The answer, it seemed, was locked away in the jungle's depths. waiting for the next person brave enough to seek it out. But as the searches came to an end, one thing became clear. The mystery was far from solved, and the question of what really happened that night remained as elusive as ever. As time passed, the legend of the gorilla phantom became more than just a story. It turned into a symbol of the unknown. The village, once thriving with daily life, was now marked by an unspoken tension. People still lived their lives, of course, but the events of that stormy night cast a long shadow. The jungle, once a place of livelihood and adventure, became a space of fear and mystery. Every rustle in the trees, every sound of breaking branches, made villagers look over their shoulders. They weren't just afraid of the creature itself, but of the idea that something was lurking just out of sight. Some began to theorize that the gorilla phantom wasn't just a creature, it was a warning. The elders, who had lived through countless seasons of change, began to speak of the jungle's ancient guardians, the spirits of the forest, protectors of its secrets. They believed that the phantom might not have been a physical beast at all, but a manifestation of the jungle's anger, its refusal to be tamed. The idea that the jungle had its own set of rules, its own guardians, was a notion that hadn't been fully embraced by the younger generation. But now, with the stories growing darker and the unexplained incidents continuing, even the most skeptical started to wonder if there was some truth to it. Interestingly, though, as the years went on, sightings of the gorilla phantom became less frequent. The creature, if it existed, seemed to grow more elusive, disappearing deeper into the jungle, almost as if it knew that its time in the village was coming to an end. The strange events, footprints, whispers in the night, shadows darting between trees, died down. Some saw it as a sign that the creature had moved on, that the balance between the village and the jungle had shifted. Others believed that the creature had been a guardian all along, fulfilling its purpose and now retreating, leaving the village in peace once more. However, the mystery of the gorilla phantom never really left. Even though there were no fresh reports, no new sightings, the legend still lived on. People still spoke of it in hushed tones, especially on stormy nights. Those who had experienced the terror firsthand carried the memory with them, forever marked by the fear and the uncertainty of that night. It became a part of the village's folklore, passed down from generation to generation, a tale to warn the younger ones about the dangers of the jungle and the things that might be hiding just beyond the trees. In many ways, the gorilla phantom became more than just a creature. It was an idea, a symbol of the unexplainable, the unknowable. It was a reminder that there are things in this world that can't always be understood or solved. Some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, lingering just beyond the reach of reason, living in the stories we tell. The creature, whatever it was, had shown that there are forces in the world that are beyond human control. And maybe, just maybe, the jungle wasn't done with them yet. So, what really happened that night? Was it an undiscovered animal, a ghostly spirit, or something else entirely? The truth remains locked in the heart of the jungle, a place where the past and present blur, and the answers may never be found. But perhaps that's what makes the legend so powerful, because some mysteries are better left unsolved, hidden in the shadows of the wild. The gorilla phantom may have vanished from the village, but its story will continue to echo through the trees, forever part of the jungle's untold history. The story of the gorilla phantom has become a reminder of the mysteries that still exist in the world around us. It's a tale that doesn't just haunt the village, but extends its reach to everyone who hears it. People from other towns and regions, intrigued by the stories, have visited the village hoping to uncover the truth. Some came with cameras, ready to document the next big discovery, while others arrived with a sense of curiosity, eager to see if the village's history would reveal something truly extraordinary. But despite their best efforts, no one has been able to find concrete evidence that could end the mystery once and for all. What's fascinating is that the legend continues to evolve. New generations of villagers, born long after the events that sparked the legend, have grown up hearing the story of the gorilla phantom. For them, it's more than just a scary story to tell around the fire. It's a piece of their history, something that binds them to their past. The mystery has become part of the cultural fabric of the community, a thread that connects the old with the new, the known with the unknown. But despite the lack of tangible proof, something about the gorilla phantom keeps drawing people in. Maybe it's the idea that there's something out there, something unexplained, just beyond the edge of the known world. Maybe it's the fact that there are no easy answers, no satisfying conclusions. We're left with more questions than answers, and in a world that's often focused on certainty and explanations, that uncertainty holds a strange allure. The mystery makes us think about the things we don't understand and the limits of human knowledge. In many ways, the gorilla phantom has become a symbol of something larger, the unknown. It represents the fears, the questions, and the unexplained aspects of our world. It serves as a reminder that not everything has a clear answer, and not every story has a happy ending. Some things remain hidden, not because they're impossible to uncover, but because they're meant to stay in the shadows. They exist on the edges of our understanding, where our curiosity meets its limits. And so, the legend continues, as strong as ever. The gorilla phantom has carved its place in folklore, not just of the village, but in the minds of everyone who's heard its story. Whether it was a creature of flesh and blood, a guardian of the jungle, or something else entirely, its legacy endures. As long as people continue to share the tale, the mystery will live on. And perhaps that's the way it was always meant to be. An enigma, an untold story, a riddle wrapped in shadow. Because some things, in the end, are more powerful when they remain unsolved, when they continue to stir our imaginations and remind us that not everything in the world is meant to be fully understood. Some mysteries are better left to the dark corners of our minds, waiting to be rediscovered by those brave enough to venture into the unknown. The mystery of the gorilla phantom might never be fully solved, but the impact it has had on the village and its people is undeniable. It's not just a story of fear or a strange creature lurking in the shadows. It's a story about how myths and legends shape our perception of the world around us. Over time, the villagers have learned to live with the uncertainty, the unanswered questions. Some embrace the mystery, while others, still haunted by the unknown, stay away from the jungle, forever cautious of what might be hiding just out of sight. But even more than that, the legend of the gorilla phantom has become a part of the village's identity. It's a tale told with reverence and awe, passed down to younger generations who now grow up with the same fear and curiosity that their ancestors once did. The legend has become a part of their culture, an integral part of their history. It serves as a reminder that the world is not always as it seems, that there are things in nature and in life that we may never fully understand. And then there's the question of the future. Will the legend of the gorilla phantom eventually fade into nothing more than a distant memory? Or will it continue to be passed on, growing with each telling, evolving into something new? As long as there are people in the village, the story will likely endure. It will remain a living legend, its details shifting over time but never losing the core of the mystery. Perhaps the creature itself will never be seen again, but the questions it raised about the nature of the jungle, the things that lurk in its depths, and the boundaries of human understanding will continue to captivate those who hear the story. There's something powerful about a legend like this. It speaks to the human need to find meaning, to explain the unexplainable. Even when we can't see the truth with our own eyes, we continue searching, wondering if there's more to reality than what we can understand. The gorilla phantom represents that search for meaning, a reminder that sometimes the answers aren't as important as the journey itself. The fear, the excitement, the curiosity, all of it is part of the story. It's what keeps us coming back, questioning, wondering, and exploring the unknown. So, whether the gorilla phantom was a real creature, a spirit, or just a figment of collective imagination, its legacy remains. It has woven itself into the fabric of the village's life and into the hearts of those who have heard its tale. The mystery will never truly be resolved, but perhaps, in a way, that's exactly what makes it so powerful. The unresolved nature of the story gives it a life of its own, one that will live on for as long as people continue to share it. As we leave the village, we're left with a lingering question. What happened that night? What really walked through the trees, leaving behind its shadow and its story? The answer may never come, but the mystery will remain, timeless and ever-present, a part of the world's vast, unexplained wonders. The legend of the gorilla phantom is not just a mystery. It's a testament to the enduring power of storytelling and the way that legends, no matter how strange, continue to shape our understanding of the world.